Stop scrolling. Right now, Americans owe over $18.8 trillion in household debt. Credit card balances alone just crossed $1.1 trillion in 2025. Nearly 60% of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck. And here's the terrifying part. Most of them understand budgeting. They just can't follow it. If that's you, listen carefully. Because you are not bad with money. You are fighting your own brain. The lie you've been told. Let's be honest. You've made the budget, downloaded the app, promised yourself this month is different, and by the 28th, you're staring at your bank account like it personally betrayed you. I've been there. I remember sitting in my car one evening, checking my balance on my phone, feeling that mix of guilt and frustration, asking myself how someone who reads finance books and sets clear goals can still feel out of control. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Money problems are rarely logical problems. They are emotional problems wearing financial clothes. If knowledge created wealth, we'd all be rich. But we're not, because the real battlefield isn't math, it's behavior. While your brain sabotages your finances, your brain has two systems: the rational planner, which is slow and future-focused, and the survival brain, which is fast, emotional, and comfort-seeking. When you're stressed, and in 2025 most Americans are, cortisol rises. Stress increases impulsivity. Impulsivity increases spending. Spending releases dopamine. Saving releases almost nothing. I used to think I just needed more discipline. But what I really needed was awareness. I started noticing patterns. I spent more after difficult meetings, after conflict, after feeling inadequate. So when you fail your budget, your biology is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Choose immediate relief over long-term safety. You're not weak. You're wired this way. The solution isn't discipline, it's redesign. The 7 psychological money rules. 1. Reverse the order. Not 50/30/20. Brain first. The 50/30/20 rule looks perfect on paper, but most people spend first and save what's left. That's like dieting by eating dessert first and hoping broccoli happens later. Instead, automate savings immediately when income hits. Your future self gets paid first, not because you're disciplined, but because you're realistic about human nature. When I first automated my savings, I felt uncomfortable. It forced me to adjust my lifestyle instead of negotiating with myself. But that discomfort was temporary. The stability was permanent. 2 emotional containers, the 6-jar psychology. When all your money sits in one account, your strongest emotion controls it. Stress leads to spending. Boredom leads to buying. Insecurity leads to upgrading. Instead, divide your money into psychological roles: survival, future safety, growth, joy, contribution, and long-term wealth. Humans don't live on discipline, we live on meaning. When money has emotional boundaries, it stops becoming therapy. I realized I needed a joy category because deprivation made me rebel. Once I gave myself permission to enjoy responsibly, impulsive splurges decreased. 3. The 1% emotional pause rule. Most financial mistakes aren't about need, they're about identity. If something costs more than 1% of your annual income, wait 72 hours. Not to think, but to calm your nervous system. Most purchases aren't about objects, they're about escaping discomfort. Discomfort fades, debt doesn't. I once delayed a purchase I was convinced would upgrade my productivity. 3 days later, I realized I didn't need the tool. I needed rest. That pause saved me money and taught me self-awareness. 4. The year that woke me up. There was a year when financial pressure multiplied, responsibilities grew, and stress increased. I felt responsible not just for myself, but for others. And I noticed something unsettling. The more anxious I felt, the more impulsive I became. I wasn't irresponsible. I was overwhelmed. That's when it hit me. If I don't change how I think about money, next year will look exactly the same, just with a different calendar. And that's true for you too. Without psychological change, repetition is guaranteed. 5. The rule of 72. Time beats intelligence. Here's the quiet truth about wealth. 72 divided by your annual return equals the years it takes to double your money. At 8%, that's about 9 years. At 10%, about 7 years. No hype, no miracle, no overnight success. The wealthy aren't always smarter. They're more patient. Consistency beats intensity every time. I had to learn to fall in love with slow progress. The small automatic investments felt insignificant at first, but over time they built confidence. 6 emergency fund equals nervous system regulation. Most Americans invest from fear of missing out, fear of falling behind. But an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of expenses isn't about growth. It's about emotional stability. When I built my first emergency buffer, I slept better. That's not exaggeration. My decisions became calmer. When you know you're safe, your brain stops operating in survival mode. Calm decisions compound. Panic destroys. 7 automation is self-respect. Willpower declines throughout the day, and research shows decision fatigue reduces impulse control. So why rely on motivation? Automate your savings. Automate your investments. Remove negotiation. Because every month you argue with yourself, your survival brain wins. Systems protect you from you. 1 in, 1 out. Overconsumption isn't just financial, it's cognitive. More possessions mean more mental clutter, and mental clutter increases stress. Stress increases impulsivity. See the loop? Financial peace is psychological simplicity. I began applying 1 in, 1 out, not just to clothes, but to subscriptions, commitments, even goals. The lighter my life felt, the clearer my financial decisions became. If you feel stuck right now, let me speak directly to you. If you overspend when stressed, you don't lack discipline. You lack emotional regulation tools. If you avoid checking your bank account, you're not irresponsible. You're avoiding anxiety. If you start strong and collapse mid-month, your system depends too much on motivation. I'm not speaking as a judge. I'm speaking as someone who had to rebuild from the inside out. The fix isn't shame, it's structure. Build systems that match your personality, not someone else's highlight reel. The truth most people miss: money activates childhood memory. It triggers survival instincts. It exposes self-worth issues. That's why managing money is really managing identity. When you stop blaming yourself and design systems for your real psychology, money stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like power. If this exposed something uncomfortable, good. Growth begins with discomfort. Comment below which rule you struggle with most, because awareness is step 1 and systems are step 2. Transformation begins the moment you stop fighting your nature and start designing around it. Subscribe if you want psychology-based wealth strategies, not recycled budgeting advice. And remember, you don't need to become someone else to build wealth. You just need systems that protect you from the version of you that shops when stressed. See you in the next video.